Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. I'm very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Hello, and if you're feeling charitable, please, please, please smash that subscribe button, smash that like button, and after this video, swim over to Twitter. You can't swim, you'll have to walk then. Walk over to Twitter, follow me at Movies TV Mag. Welcome to Saturday's edition of the dceu Daily, and take a listen to this.
Happened at the time when the internet was expanding into the movie business in a kind of a different way, you know what I mean? And like the fan sites and the relationship with the fans and the studios and the comic book creators and stuff was changing and evolving. Zach told me he wanted to basically do the tone of the Dark Knight, Frank Miller series, where he's older and he's kind of broken down and more vulnerable. And I thought that was a really interesting approach to Batman.
There's more.
The spirit of that, as a guy who's vulnerable, as a guy who's aches when he gets up in the morning, as a guy who feels a lot of psychological sort of torment, I thought was a really interesting approach to playing a hero, and that was how what we wanted to do, and I had a better time on Batman vs Superman, which I really enjoyed doing. And Justice League was unfortunately touched by some personal tragedy and death in Zach's family, and it just, like I say, sometimes things sort of work and gel, and sometimes they just you seem to be just having one problem after another. I really loved Batman vs Superman, and Chris wrote on it, and I really love Zach, and I love putting on the costume, and the idea of doing the digital alteration to the voice was really interesting to me, and I had a good time. I loved Detroit. It was a really fun city, really cool place. My kids came out and visited me and saw me in the bat suit, and they let me borrow the suit for my son's birthday, and so that was a lot of fun. And I sort of had my fill of that. They said, "Do you want to direct and star in like a solo Batman movie?" I found that I had kind of at just some point lost my enthusiasm or passion for it. I was like, this should really be made by somebody for whom it's their wildest dream, come true. And for me, it had become like something different, and it was clear to me that it was time to move on. But I do have some really fond memories, particularly of Batman versus Superman, and how exciting that was, and how energizing it was, and how.
Look, I love Ben Affleck, and I love the interview, and it's brilliant, and it's enthusiastic, especially his enthusiasm for BVS. But he's kind of undercut some things. He wasn't just offered the Batman, and he said, "Well, no, I don't have the passion. Someone with the passion should do it." That's simply not true. He accepted the job. He wrote a script. He even, did that whole, that Deathstroke? Remember the Deathstroke video, right? That test footage for Deathstroke. It was very exciting. It was very Kevin Feige-like. It was a big tease, and we all got excited. The Batman was happening. He developed the script, and he went into production. So Ben is kind of undercutting that. And I think it's important as fans we understand what really happens in these situations. But I love Ben Affleck, and I think his Batman's awesome. Not as awesome as Christian Bale, but he's an awesome Bruce Wayne Batman, and I love BVS. So he speaks about enjoying doing Batman v Superman. Then he goes, Justice League, well, the director's daughter died. It's kind of grating on me that people keep on using Autumn's suicide as an excuse for this situation. Zack Snyder lost his daughter. He had every right to step down from that film. But him and his wife are such gutsy, brave, strong people that they probably did, of course, want to take some time away. But I'm convinced they would have come back to finish their movie. Or they would have just carried on and then grieved afterwards. But if they did want to quit the movie because of Autumn's death, that was their right. I'm not saying anything. But that simply isn't true. Zack Snyder was not allowed to carry on with his movie that he completed shooting right and pretty much edited right. He wasn't allowed to complete his movie because they didn't like the finished product, right? So when they saw his movie, his completed movie, they said, nah, bring in Joss Whedon. That's the truth. So Autumn's tragic suicide and the ending of her life should not be used as an excuse, because I know all about suicide and depression, and it's not something you should use as spin for what happened on a controversial movie set. Let's be clear. Again, nothing against Ben. He's throwing out the party line, but he does throw out some honesty when it comes to Justice League, when he says, well, sometimes things don't work out. One thing goes wrong, then another thing goes wrong. What went wrong was Kevin Sugihara, running of Warner Brothers at the time. He messed with Batman v Superman, he messed with Suicide Squad, and he messed with Justice League, and that's what Ben's alluding to. And this is why Justice League didn't work out, and this is why Ben Affleck is no longer involved, or is the Batman. Now, is all this Ben's decision? I don't know. I don't know if Matt Reeves even wanted to work with Ben. I don't know. We will never know that. And you know what? Matt Reeves is his own man, and he's got his own vision. He has every right to have the actor who he foresees in his vision for the character. And I would never get in his comments and attack him for that, because that would be wrong, and that would make you wrong. That most things are about points of view, but you don't attack people's personal space. He's posting to Batman fans. If you're not a fan, just leave it alone. Just forget about it. So it's pretty clear that this confirms everything we already know. Ben loved BVS. Part of the BVS vision was his vision. Him and Zach were working as creatives together. It wasn't just a case of a director saying, look up in the sky and say blue. This is a film that represented both of their visions. And that would have carried on. It would have carried on with David Ayer's cut of the Suicide Squad, and it would have carried on in the real Justice League, the Snyder cut of Justice League. Just seeing the interview just makes me sad that he's not Batman anymore, and seeing what Sugihara did to this vision is very sad, and that's why things like this must motivate us to keep on fighting. Release the Snyder cut. Release the Ayer cut. So yesterday I went to the cinema specifically to rewatch Birds of Prey. And I must say, I think it's a fabulous little movie. And if you haven't seen it, and if you haven't, do you know what? I just realised something. I was supposed to put my dceu trailers on, but I kept the Doctor Who trailers on behind. But anyway, I'm sure there's some Doctor Who fans say it doesn't really matter. And so, yes, I saw Birds of Prey and I really enjoyed it. I still will stand by this film and say it's a really good little addition to the DCEU. Some people are talking about the box office and the film itself as it was supposed to be this massive, big blockbuster where they spent 200 million, had big CGI effects, and it was never supposed to be that kind of film, right? So at the end of the day, I love it for what it is. I think what's clever about Hamada with this, he gave Margot Robbie what she wanted. So there was no chance of her saying, right, you are not supporting me, so I'm going to leave. I don't want to play Harley anymore, right? I'm sure she wouldn't have done that, but there would have been bad feelings. So Walter said, have your little feminist, girl gang, CBM movie. It's fine. It won't hurt us, right? Because, let's be honest, there has been a negative reaction partly to this film. Now, personally, when I see the film, I ignore the feminist agenda, and it's there. It's a whining fest. You know how men take women's jobs and, take credit for what women do. And I think it's really funny at one point when she says, well, being with Mr. J gave me this situation where nobody would try and kill me, no one would hurt me because they were scared of the Joker. And I thought that was interesting because one minute she's talking about how she came up with some of the, the scams and the plans and the crimes, and nobody ever gave her credit for it. But then she's pretty much saying that being with the Joker, being with a powerful man, gave her great advantages. So it's a mixed message here, and this is what you get from alt-left feminists. But I choose to ignore that messaging because at the end of the day, this is what's really clever by Walter Hamada. He puts this film just before the course correction, the timeline change in Wonder Woman 1984. So it's pretty much, you know what, Kathy Yan, you know what, Margot Robbie, go for it. Go for it. Fill your boots here because after Wonder Woman 1984, none of it's going to matter. So that's what's great. So I like Birds of Prey. I'm glad they made it. It's a great addition. You just have to ignore the alt-left feminist conversations. But apart from that, it's a really good, entertaining film. I love all the performances. I love the storytelling. And Ewan McGregor is an awesome Black Mask, and everyone's still talking about it. What's not very nice, as usual, is the kind of negative kind of chatter with people saying that the moment where Harley Quinn is kind of eating her sandwich and feeling great love for her sandwich, they're feeling more for that than they do for the chemistry between Henry Cavill and Amy Adams in Man of Steel. Why is it? Why is it that people can't just say, I love this? No, they not only have to tell you what they love, they have to tell you what they hate. And for me, that's really, really disappointing. And I don't know about you, and you can comment down below, but this is the negativity that I and you lot have to put up with on social media on a daily basis. And for our mental health, it is mentally degenerative, if you ask me, and disappointing. But anyway, I want to know what you think about what Ben Affleck's had to say about BVS and Justice League. And I also want to know what you think about Birds of Prey and the future of the DCEU. And do you agree with this potential timeline change? Walter Hamada was very clever for allowing Kathy Yan and Margot Robbie to make their movie that was going to be set before that timeline change. I think he's a very smart guy. I think the future of the DCEU and DC films in his hands is in very safe hands. And I shall see you tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. See you then.